Let me go and share my screen. Guys, today we are starting with Kubernetes. I don't know how do you spell it. K8s, right? So till now, what we have done is we have done Docker. Now, I can see that in this class, we have only 20 people coming in. So what we'll do, I think many people are not aware that we are restarting the training, right? So what we'll do is we'll do today and we'll not do tomorrow. First, today we'll do the training, we'll get warmed up. I will just make sure that I send the mailers to everyone that we have started with the training so that they can continue, right? But what did we do in this training? In this training, we have completed Docker's part. So if you remember, why Docker, installing Docker, Docker file, ignore files, publishing to registry, MVC code using Dockers, SQL Server inside it, different permutations and combinations we did, IIS, and we also hosted an old web application and so on, right? So today we'll start with Kubernetes, understanding the architecture of Kubernetes. I will just make this one thing, right? Kubernetes and its architecture, right? So we will do this first. And then what we'll do is we'll start a simple learning Kubernetes. We can start using Minikube, right? Okay, so delete entire row. And then definitely Minikube is only for learning purpose. Then we'll do something more professional like Ux, right? Azure Ux, right? Okay, so let us start here. So what exactly is Kubernetes out here? Kubernetes is also called as K8s. So because these are 8 words inside it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, these are 8. The 8 words are from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 9, whatever it is, right? So okay, K8s it is called as. So just to be more stylish, right? But what exactly is Kubernetes? It is nothing but it is an orchestration over Docker. So for example, now let us say you have a lot of Docker VMs or Docker, I will not say VMs, containers, right? And it becomes very difficult to manage them. You would like to apply common policies across it. You would like to go and have resiliency. For example, one Docker container has gone down, then another should come up and so on. That's what this K8s helps us to do. Kubernetes helps us to do, right? So if you look at the architecture of Kubernetes, I've just shamelessly pasted an architecture which I got from the net. I was like, I should be drawing the diagram, but I just took one from the net, which I liked it. So if you look at Kubernetes, right, it has 2 parts to it, right? And very quickly before I start, please, if you are coming for this session for the first time, it would be very difficult. So I would suggest that please go and watch all those 10, 11 sessions, what we did previously, because the base of Kubernetes is Docker, right? So if you're not knowing Docker, then directly coming to this class is like going blind. Okay, but yes, you can sit today in today's class. It's not that you won't be able to follow, but the point is that if you've done Docker, that is the base for it. Okay, so that is just a quick I'll not say warning, but a quick thing, that if you're coming directly to the class, it is difficult to understand certain concept. So think about it. You have a lot of Dockers below, right? So you can see here is a Kubernetes architecture, right? And let us understand it. Can I draw one? This is so complicated, right? Let me draw one. I can just take a reference of that. So that would make, actually, I don't have my pen with me. I'll just try to use the board, right? So think about it, here you have a lot of Dockers, right? So a lot of Docker containers. So assume you have many Docker containers out here. Assume this is one container, assume, right? Remember Docker container? In case if you don't remember Docker, remember we had our Docker container. So Docker container is inside which your application runs, right? So you can see that I have the Docker desktop out here. So if you remember, the container is nothing but the application which actually runs, right? So let this open and we'll see the container, but that's a Docker container out here. So you have many containers out here, and definitely it becomes very difficult to manage each one of the containers. So what you do is that you can take help of K8s. So this K8s is nothing but it is orchestration, right? It goes and it promises that it will go and it will manage all of this, right? So the first thing in this K8s is the API server. So what they have done, they said that, okay, to manage these things at the back, right? The Dockers at the back, if we can go and use REST API, right? That would be better because REST everybody understands. So there is a REST API server, right? And you hit the REST API server, and the REST API server will go and send signals back to the pods, to the containers, and it can create what you call a pool of containers. It can bring down one container, it can make up another container, and so on, right? So the first thing, which is very important out here is this REST API, right? REST API, which works on post, get, put, delete, right? So anybody can go and send message to this REST API by using normal HTTP post get, and they will actually make sure that they will configure these containers at the back, right? So that is the first thing. The second thing is to configure this REST API, there is a nice exe given, or I'll say they are given a nice control out here called as a kube control. So what is this kube control? This kube control is an exe. Okay, it is an exe. What it does is you can go and you can fire commands like, I'll just show some commands out here. It's an exe which you can download. And you can go and you can fire commands saying, okay, get me the nodes. So how many nodes are there? Get me the pods. How many pods are there, right? Go and create one extra node, right? Go and get me deployments. Go and create deployment, right? So this kube control is nothing but it is a exe, an executable. Can't I just write it? So it's an executable. Now, when you miss your Wacom pen, right? So this is an executable out here, kube control, right? Kube. So sorry for the horrible, this one. This is the server, the web API server, right? I'll just write it out here. API server, right? Good, right? Now, the next component, which is out here is the etcd, right? This etcd is nothing but you can think about, you can think about that it has metadata, which says that, okay, how many pods are running, which Docker is having an issue, right? So this etcd, what I've done also is like, as I'm explaining these components, I put down this thing out here. So you can see this etcd is nothing but it's a key value storage, which says that, okay, how many number of pods are there? What is their state at this moment, and so on, right? So we can just draw here one more thing which is needed is the etcd, right? I'll just draw a diagram. I'll just draw like this so that it indicates it is some kind of a metadata. It's some kind of a name value pair, some kind of a storage, right? This is the next thing. The other thing, so let us go back to the diagram. So the next thing, what we have out here is we have a control manager. This control manager is nothing but it is a background process which actually controls, that if a server is down, then you should make some another server up. So it actually sends signals to the API server to manage, automatic things, like resiliency, balancing, load. I'll not say load balancing, but, fault tolerance. If one pod fails, another pod should come up, right? So there's again one more thing here called as a control manager. Remember, some of these components probably you will never use or you will never configure, but it is just good to know about it, right? So the kind of a controller, I can say, which is again a part of it. So this is all the part of the front end, what we have, right? And remember, these all talk with the web server at the end of the day, okay? The next thing is the nodes. So at the end of the day, you can think about that this is the orchestration, or this is what the in Kubernetes, in K8s, they think about nodes, so you can think about that this is a node, and this node has what? This node has an API server, it has this and this, right? Another one, they again, they term this as a master node. They term it as a master node, right? Now, this master node will go and talk with the worker nodes, right? So if you see the diagram again out here, there are worker nodes out here, right? So you can have multiple worker nodes, right? So they will talk with multiple worker nodes, right? These are worker nodes out here. Now, so you have these containers out here. You can group, containers into something called as pods. So which is the lowest unit. So you can see here, so you have a Docker. So at the end of the day, all this will go inside a Docker, right? So you will have a Docker, but you'd like to say, okay, these two containers, can I group them into a pod? A pod. This outside is a Docker, so a pod, right? So a pod, and yes, whenever this API server interacts, it interacts with something called as a kubelet out here, right? And definitely these containers will be exposed to the external world, right, through an IP address, and that is done through a proxy. So there is a proxy out here, right, which actually helps you to communicate to the outer world, right? So these are some of the major components of K8s. First is a front-end API server, which promises, that I will orchestrate for you everything at the backend. And in the backend, you have a Docker. Inside the Docker, you can have multiple containers. You can group certain containers into pods. And if you want to go and talk with the external world, you have to configure the proxy, right? And if you want to go and configure anything from the command line, you have the kube control exe. You can say kube control exe, create this service, create this pod, right? And so on. And then you have the metadata, which is stored here. So this is just a, what you call an overall view of K8s, right? Now, remember, there are certain other things also which you will come across. I already talked about this kube control, which is a command line tool, right? This is already I've spoken about. Let me see if something is pending. Yeah, the service. We'll talk about this service later on. There is service and volume. This volume is nothing but the drive of the Docker, right? But this is mounted for all the containers. So in a pod, so if you have a pod, right, for that pod, you will need hard disk, right? So that is this volumes, right? So whenever I'm using these words, now guys, it is very important to understand the words. Huh? So one is we have the master node, the worker node, the database, or I'll say the storage, key value storage, which stores namespaces and state of the pods and so on, right? API server, which is the REST API, control manager, which actually talks and does, a lot of resiliency things and what do you call endpoint management and so on, right? Cloud control manager, you can leave it for now. Scheduler, yeah. This scheduler, for now leave this. When this scheduler and the cloud one, for now leave that. And then we have two things inside the nodes, inside the worker nodes. One is a kubelet, right, which actually takes the commands, from the server, and kube proxy, which is to talk to the external world through the public IP address, and kube controls is a command line. So, for example, you can see here, I have the kubectl. I have just downloaded the kubectl. You can see, I'll show you from where to download it. You can go and it's a exe, you can fire kubectl, get me nodes, kubectl, create like this, right? Right. Any questions here, guys, on the basic architecture, right? And the basic use of K8s? Yes. Bouncer on the architecture. Yes, it is a bouncer. Is it? Okay. Let me know what is not understood. Yeah. Let me know, guys, what is not understood. I can see that very clearly. See, I hope that at least that is understood, right? There are a group of Dockers, right? Docker containers, and you want to manage them. That is what the K8 is meant for. So it has a front end. If you don't want to get too much into all small things, what you can do is that at least try to remember, okay, there is an API server. Okay, just remember this much. If you don't want to get into too much, API server, and the API server goes and manages pods. And pods is a collection of your your containers, right? And to manipulate anything, you will use kube control. So if you don't want to really remember a lot of things, at least remember these important things, right? The rest, then is okay. Yeah, definitely. Over learning is also so bad, isn't it? I will teach you all those things and then you'll never use it. So you can at least think about, okay, there is an API server, right? Forget what it has. It has etcd and so on. Leave it, So this is the K8s. If you don't want to even remember nodes and worker nodes, fine. This is the K8s. The whole thing is K8s, actually. The whole thing is K8s, but there's an API server at the front end. At the back end, you have containers, right? And these containers are grouped into something called as pods, right? And the API server helps you to manage it, right? So you can have a lot of pods and you can have a lot of containers. So even if you remember this much, you should be good to start with, right? So in case if you don't want to get into all that, right? But again, one more thing, definitely to manipulate all this, to control all this, we have the kubectl exe. It's an exe. You go and you fire commands from the command line. So for example, you can go out here and you can say, so here is the exe, right? At this point, there is no kube configured here. There is no cluster configured here. Please note, huh? But you can go like this. I'll tell you from where to download the kubectl. But you can go here and oh, it's in downloads, is it? You can say, okay, kubectl, like this. Kubectl, some of the commands. Let me show you some commands out here. So for example, one of the commands you can fire is, okay, get me all the nodes. At this moment, remember that there is no Kubernetes running on this machine, so it would actually fail. Okay. So if I go and fire like this, if there was something running, then it would have shown me that get the node. So that is what is the kubectl is, right? Okay. Let me know, guys. If at least this much this is understood. If you can understand this much, I think we are still good to start with, right? Forget about all the other noise what I talked in the last 15 minutes, right? Okay, so good. Now you'll say, okay, good, sir. So we understood the architecture. Tell us from where to start from, right? Point number one, you can start from the Docker itself. Okay. Any questions here, guys, before I move ahead? Any questions? Today, my goal is to introduce you the basic concepts, right? And in the next lecture, we will start creating the nodes, right? Today, I'll try to create a quick, I will use Minikube, which is not really a professional K8s, but it will help you to understand that how nodes look like. Let me see if I can set up the Minikube out here. Okay. Yeah. Any questions here? Any queries? Let me go back to the chat window. Yes. Let us see if there are any questions. Right. Okay. Thank you, Harmit. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Yes. Let's see. Is Azure Fabric similar to K8s? Yes, it is. See, Azure Fabric, it is not, it is, you can think about, yes, it is similar to K8s, but remember that the K8s is it is the way to go ahead. So I would say that Azure Fabric is there, but I would say that leave it for now and try to use UX. So they have something called as UX in Azure, which actually helps you to do the orchestration on the Kubernetes, right? So yeah, they have the Azure Fabric, but I feel that you can configure Docker over there. You can configure virtual machine. The difference between Azure Fabric and K8s is that K8s only will configure Docker containers. Well, Azure Fabric, it can configure virtual machines. It can configure Docker. It can configure a lot of things out there, right? I would suggest that, Azure Service Fabric is costly also, first thing. And second thing, I somehow feel that it is not standard. So I feel that somewhere down the line, I don't know what is the future of that Service Fabric. I am not sure. But I think UX is, people are using it more compared to Fabric, right? But again, I said Fabric, it was introduced in the past and it still does the work. So, but I'm not sure that how much effort they are going to put ahead. Okay. Right now, let us go ahead. So I'm seeing that there are no questions, right? First thing, let us start with Docker. So inside Docker, you have the K8s. So if you have installed Docker here, you can see here, my Docker installation has gone bad. So let me start with fail to start the engine. Why? I don't know, right? So I've installed Docker. Please, in case if you don't know Docker, please see my past videos. This Docker I have configured for Windows. So what happened? I was doing something with my Hyper-V. I don't know if something went wrong with my Hyper-V. Let me try to switch to Windows container. Let me do that. Because let's see what happens. What I've done is I'm trying to just switch to the Windows container. Looks like it is there, right? Now, in this, looks like it is working, but I'm not sure, right? So here, first thing you will find, now you can see this is running as a Windows container. Please note, you can see here, I'm going to go and right click on this. You can see it is currently running as Windows container. So bad news, bad news. If you are on Linux container, you will get a very nice checkbox out here called as Kubernetes. But if you are on Windows container, you don't get anything like that. You can see at this moment, I am on Windows container. But if I switch to Linux, let me show you. You do get something called as the Kubernetes. You can see that light. It's trying to switch, right? I have some errors here of Hyper-V. I will get some red signs out here. Don't worry too much. But you can see that as I said to switch to Linux, you can see that there is Kubernetes and I can enable it. Now, definitely I can't enable it at this moment because I have installed this Docker. I'm trying to configure this Docker as per Windows, right? So it is there, but we won't be able to use it. And this class is very, very specific of Kubernetes with Windows and Docker on Windows. I'm trying to avoid Linux as far as possible because that's what was the agenda of the training was, right? But so these errors, guys, please excuse. But you can see enable Kubernetes is out here, version 1.2.7. It is seeing very lightly. But if I go and if I change this to Windows, you don't see that, right? So if I switch to Windows, you can see now that is there out here, but it will not work. You can create a Kubernetes cluster very quickly. You can just say start Kubernetes cluster. You can say kube control, give me get nodes. So it creates one node, one worker node, and it creates one pod, right? One worker node and one pod. This basic thing creates for you, right? But as I've said, it is not available on Windows, right? So if I switch to Windows, it is gone, right? So you can see I'm switching to Windows and this menu will go off, right? So that's the bad news for us. I hope that they will support this Kubernetes on Hyper-V and so on later on. Okay. So what is the option for us? Option for us now is we have to create our cluster ourselves, right? We have to create our cluster ourselves, right? So what we will do is first thing, let us go and use something called as Minikube. What is a Minikube? A Minikube is nothing but it is a quick learning tool given by the community, which will help us to go and quickly create one node and one pod, and inside that one pod we can install many many containers if you wish, right? So one node, one pod kind of environment it gives, right? So to do Minikube, what we'll do first thing is we will go ahead. First thing, before you start with Minikube, one most important thing is that your Windows, should be configured with Hyper-V. Remember, if you're not configured with Hyper-V, then it does not work. I'm just going to quit this because, right. So if you're not configured with Hyper-V, it does not work. So first thing, what I would suggest is whatever Windows you select, right, it should have Hyper-V configured, right? Or else Kubernetes will not work. So for that, what you can do is you can fire certain commands out here. Either you can do it manually. You can go to the control panel and enable Hyper-V. If not, what you can do is you can go ahead and you can fire these PowerShell commands. So I can just put this as step 1. I can just put this as step 1 because without this, step 0 actually. Right, step 0 in your Windows, go ahead and enable this. You can see I'm enabling Hyper-V. Also, what I'm doing is I'm installing the Hyper-V tools because we would like to go to Hyper-V and check settings, right? So these tools are also important. So either you can do it manually or you can go and fire this, here. Now remember that whenever you're firing this, it's so irritating. This is, come on here. Let me just quit this. Let me just exit from this. My Docker is not configured properly. Let me quit. Right. So to do this, what you'll do is that you'll first run PowerShell in admin mode. So run as administrator. Right. And you can fire these commands out here. Enable Hyper-V all and install the management tools. Once you do that, which I've already done in my computer, once you do that, right, you will get this nice Hyper-V manager desktop out here like this, because you have installed the management tools, and here you can go and you can see things which are there, right? The next thing what we'll do is we will go and we will install Minikube, right? So so for the Minikube, what you can do is you can go to this GitHub. You can also go and see the latest version of Minikube, right? So I'm going to go and take this as step. This is step 0. This is step 1, right? Step 0, and this is step 1. Right? So step 1, we got those steps, step 1. So in the step 1, what we are doing is we are actually going and downloading this installer, and then we will try to go and create a one node kind of a cluster. Okay. So let me quickly go here. So I've already installed Minikube out here. What I'll do is I'll just go to my control panel and let me uninstall the Minikube. Let me uninstall it. I was just checking certain things. Just before the class, I wanted to make sure that my demos run, or most of the time my demos don't run, right? So I'll just uninstall this so that I can show you how. Oh, I want to actually reboot later. Okay, we'll see. It's asking for a reboot. Okay, next thing also fine. So this is there, right? So now what you can do is you can go ahead from that link. You can install the Minikube. You can download the Minikube installer, and let us go ahead and install it. Very simple installation. Just says next, next, and I agree, and install, right? Now, when this Minikube installs, right, it goes and it creates a virtual machine called as Minikube inside the Hyper-V manager. Now you can see I have uninstalled the Minikube, but you can see that this Minikube is seen out here. That means because when you uninstall a software, it is not so smart that it will go to the virtual machine and uninstall something, right? So it looks to me my old Minikube network or my old Minikube cluster is still out there. So we need to get rid of this. We'll see how to get rid of this. So I'll just say next and finish, right? So I'm going to go here, and this is the Minikube out here. So if you go, the Minikube at the end of the day, it is not a big glamorous UI, it is a simple exe internally. So if you go and if you go to the files out there, it is a simple exe out there, right? And by using this exe, now you can say Minikube start, Minikube run, Minikube this, it will create a cluster for you. Now, very quickly, Minikube is not meant for production. It is meant for learning, right? It is only meant for learning. When you say you want to go to production, you should be using something like Ux, you should be using AWS K8s, or you should be using Google K8s or something. You shouldn't be using this Minikube. So it is very, very specific for learning. By looking at today's timelines, I wanted to make sure that I show you some cluster and nodes, right? Now, right. So, and the second part is, you must be wondering that, so is it so difficult to configure K8s? He's doing Minikube, he's saying kubectl. No, it is not. When you actually go on cloud, right, everything is like through the UI. You'll say tuck, 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 done. But what happens is, sometimes, you suddenly have to say, oh, like I have to go and create a YAML file. I have to go and fire kubectl commands. So at that time, the basic concept should be known, right? So that is the whole goal. So I'll just copy this address out here and let us go and CMD or run it as admin. Please run it as admin. So let us go and fire some Minikube commands and let us see our cluster. Run as administrator. I'll make the fonts bigger. So can I make large out here? That is nothing happened. Kuch nahi hua. Okay, good. So I'll just say CD and I'll say Control V. I go here. So we have Minikube. What now? Let me try to do a Minikube start. This is a command which will help you to create a basic cluster. Remember, again, I'm repeating, this is only for learning purpose. When you go on cloud, it is all through a very nice web UI. Okay, you won't be firing these commands. So first thing is your Hyper-V should be enabled. If your Hyper-V is not enabled, it's a problem. And you can see fail to start and something is out here. And you can see he also tries to retry and I'm getting some errors, right? So first, what I would like to do is I would like to do a Minikube delete, because I feel that the previous part of Minikube is still pending out there. So let me go and do a Minikube delete. So let me delete all that. right? So let us see. So if I do a minikube delete, I'm expecting it should remove this VM. What happened? Right. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let this command fire because I just want to make sure that everything is clear out there. Okay. So that is one. So very quickly, what we have done till now, until that command runs, we have enabled Hyper-V, very important on Windows. We have installed the Hyper-V admins, the management tools, right? We have downloaded Minikube and we said, Minikube, can you run? The Minikube showed us some error. And then we said, okay, if Minikube is showing some errors, then we just thought that probably it's an old thing. So you can see it has deleted the Minikube in the Hyper-V. It has deleted the Minikube in the Hyper-V. Good. And we are ready to start. Okay. Good. Now, let us do it. So I'll just say Minikube start. I hope it works. Right. And let us see. Right. So creating an hyper virtual machine. See, internally, it will create a VM. Huh? It will create a VM. And inside that, he will try to go ahead and do things. You can see also, he's saying that I'll be using 2 CPUs. I'll be using this memory, this much hard disk. This also you can configure. So what you can do is, if you want to go and configure this, you will say Minikube. When you run the code, when you run the command line, you can go and you can say, okay, disk size is this much, memory is, whatever, 100 MB RAM or whatever, for 1 GB RAM, right? And so on. So you can go and you can even provide the command lines out here. And it's showing some errors, right? So the first thing, let us see what the errors are. The first thing you will see, he actually tries to run to create the cluster, right? He tries to create the cluster out here. He fails, right? And what he does is he again retries it. So you can see it. He again tries to restart it, but it did not work. And he was not able to do it. And then he ran the minikube delete command. Right. So let us see what the error is. The error says minikube failed to start the virtual machine management service because one of the Hyper-V components is not running. Because one of the Hyper-V components is not running. Okay, what is it? No. It is possible that he needs a switch. Now, I'm not sure if that is needed. That should have worked out. I don't know what happened. Let me see anything in the event viewer. So sad. All my demos fail. Huh? This I came prepared. You saw that Minikube VM. I had created this before the class. I came prepared. Event VWR. Let us see. It's just saying that some Hyper-V component is not there, but it's not giving me more details to me. Something has to go wrong on Saturday. Huh? Okay. Let me check this. And remember, this is a Azure VM. Now, this Azure VM, they are not virtualized by default. They don't have nested virtualization. So you have to select a bit higher kind of version. Please understand, huh? Azure virtual machines, are not virtualized, but they are not virtualized enabled. They are not enabled for virtualization. So you have to select a bit higher machine like D3 version or something, and in case you want to just quickly check that if your machine is having Hyper-V running or not, what you can do is you can either go to the task manager. One easy way which I do is that I can go to the task manager out here and go to the performance tab. Yeah, but here I should see it and I don't see it. Let me go and say, one is this way of doing it. Let me also use system info to check. This is one more way I can check if Hyper-V is enabled or not. It comes at the last. So hypervisor has been detected. Okay. So looks like the Hyper-V is there, and it is there. I can see that the Hyper-V manager is there. Let also quickly to check, what I can also do is I can go to my services.msc, and in that also I can go and check that if my Hyper-Vs are running. So I'll just check this. I don't know why it is throwing that exception. We should see Hyper-V compute service. Yeah, looks like it is running. All good. So what is the problem? This is different, not needed. Hyper-V is running because, let me see. I don't want to go into R&D at this moment. I don't want to do that. Did it create Minikube? It did not. Right. Okay. Let me not do that myself. That would be bad, right? I'm stuck now. Why is that error? Let me go back to that error. So sad. Which Hyper-V component is not running? It says virtualization exception. But my virtualization is enabled in my computer. And it did run, guys. Before this, when I came, it did run. Now I don't know what the error is. So if my okay, let me do like this. Let me go and configure a virtual switch. I don't know if you see when you run the Minikube. Okay, let me do like this. First thing, when Minikube is running, now I'm stuck, so I have to find out solution for it in the class. So here it is. So one more thing which I want to emphasize: when you run Minikube, you can create the virtual virtualization by using Hyper-V, or you can also use Oracle VM. Right? I will not be using Oracle VM, but I'm just saying that you can also use Oracle VM. So one of the things which I'm thinking is that is this Minikube trying to use Oracle VM? I'm not sure, right? So I'll just go back here. This is just my thought. Maybe I can just go back here and just tell him that don't think about Oracle or anything. Just think about that you will use Hyper-V. Okay. We'll take up on Minikube delete. Why not? I'm more than happy to do a Minikube delete. Right. And let me try this. So what I'll do is I'll tell him explicitly that you have to use Hyper-V as a driver. So I'll just change my command out here saying start it, but don't use the Oracle VirtualBox. Use the Hyper-V. Okay. So let us see. But you know what it did? The exception what it gave, it is using Hyper-V. So I mean there is no doubt that he is not using the. Okay, so if that is the case, because like in the error, remember it says that I am trying to use Hyper-V, it is not working. So it is not that he's going and using Oracle VirtualBox or something. So forget about that error, right? Right. I'm not sure this Hyper-V virtual switch is the problem. That is so sad. Let me see. I'll just start the Minikube start and see. Okay, so if this Minikube works, guys, right, then we should be able to see what we'll do. The further step is if this does not work, right, we'll stop here today and we'll do in the next class. So first thing is I can go and I can then say Minikube status. What is the status of the Minikube? Is it running or not? Once if the Minikube starts running, I can go and I can start a dashboard. I can say Minikube dashboard. I'll get a nice dashboard where I can see how many pods I have, how many things I have, right? And then also I can go and I can tell to the cube control exe saying that, okay, use Minikube, get how many nodes it has, get how many pods it has, right? So that's how it should work ahead. I know it's not working for now. And this minikube delete takes its own time. Okay. Uh, what I will do now, that thing is not working, right? Let me go and create a virtual switch. That's my last option I'll try. Let me see if, I don't know, somebody, I'm sure that many people here are right. Can you reboot? Maybe it's, yeah, you due to your, yeah, let's do that. Let's restart. Okay. Thank you, champs. Let me do that. But I don't think so because, okay, we can do a restart. Okay. Any questions, guys? If this works, it is good. If not, then in the next class we'll do. But I hope at least in today's class, we got an idea of what is K8s, what are the different components of K8s, what is kubectl, what is minikube, where minikube can be used, right? And how to go and start using minikube, how to go and enable Hyper-V, what are the requirements needed, for the Windows machine, right? And also we looked into different virtualization like Hyper-V and Oracle VM. When you start, you can use one of them, right? Let us see if that thing runs. Okay, I'll quickly go there. So any questions here, guys? In case, this does not run, it's only 9:45. I don't want to go and start doing R&D in the last moment. Let me again go back. One of the things what I've done is I've used Azure virtual machine, and all Azure virtual machine don't do virtualization, and that also nested virtualization are very important. So, but yeah, but I've selected a higher end like standard E2 size. Standard E2 size, does that support standard E2 Azure VM nested virtualization support? How do I know what AZ size supports virtualization? So sad. I'm Googling before you. Yes. So that is right. I've chosen a right VM. EV3 VM sizes. Yeah. EV3. All good. So I think I'm right. So let us connect back. I think. Remember, if you want to select Windows, and don't do Windows 10 Home, forget it. This Windows 10 Home, don't try to. Some of our developers, still try to run Docker on Windows 10 Home. Remember, you have to get stuck with doing R&D then. It's better to just go and use a VM online of Azure, use it, throw it, right, and learn. Okay, I've started it. Let's see what happens now. Must be it is just my restart. So Hyper-V. And you know what? Again, I always believe that these kind of errors is what is more important. If everything runs and then everything is good, right? It does not. So, okay, so there it is. I think let us go now and see again. Let me try. If not, then next class we'll do it, right? Please run command line in admin. Just so that. Yep. Okay, minikube, start. Do I need to give you more specification? I'm more than happy to do that. Right. I'm more happy to tell him that Hyper-V. You can just tell him use Hyper-V. He's using it. If this does not work, we'll stop today's class. Let us see. Any questions, guys, please put down out there. And so you can see it is creating Hyper-V VM. And there it is. Minikube is now created. I'm so happy. Let us see. Right. Yeah. Now, if this is the case, then we need something else. This is not good sign. Okay, let me try last thing. I'll just do a minikube delete. You can see again the same errors it is. One thing which I feel which is possible is, hey, this should have worked, Malik. Okay. Which is possible is that he is looking for a virtual switch. So let me create a switch here called as the minikube virtual switch. Let me do that. Must be it is just looking for a virtual switch. Create it over here, a virtual switch. We'll talk about this virtual switch later on. I'm just doubting it. He needs it. Minikube. This can. I already have one. So I already have one. You can see I've already created one, right? So can I use this to just say that use this virtual switch? Let me do that. So the virtual switch name is exactly minikube, right? Let me see. If this does not work, then we'll see in the next class. So I'm saying that Hyper-V use the Hyper-V virtual machine, driver use Hyper-V, and virtual machine and virtual switch use this, right? If that first command, I mean, like minikube start should just work, period. No doubt about it. That is just work. But now, bad day for me. Okay, any questions there, guys? Whatever it fails or it passes, right? Any queries out there on what we have done? Please put on the chat. Must be next 10 minutes. We can go for the queries, isn't it? Okay, leave this on me. I will put up an update on this. Let us not try to do an R&D. Okay. So, guys, any questions? Again, like bad day for me. Right. Cube control. Can you paste the error on the chat? Why not? I know you guys are all good Googlers. Why not? More than happy. I can just paste all this. But as I've said, guys, I'm pasting the whole thing. Why not? And I'm very happy that these errors are coming. A direct message from one of my friends. Okay, let us see. Your message is too long. Yes, I will share. The Word document is already shared. It's already shared, but this today's Word document I'll share. What I'll do is, this is the whole error actually. But from this error, what is more important is this one. This one. So I'll just paste this one and also this one, virtualization exception. But I'm sure that it is something related to Azure, I feel. So I don't know. It's so sad. Okay. Okay, guys, any queries? Let me see at the top if there are any queries. Cube control. So yeah, but the cube control is Hyper-V manager works for me. So there's a message here, sir. In my case, that worked. Okay. I don't know. In my case, it is not working. I'm so sorry. What is the cost of UX? I have never checked it. Must be when we actually deploy an UX, we can go through that. But I've never checked, what is the cost of AKS. Do we do such kind of, do we do Kubernetes offline in your company, in our company internally? So your question is that, do we do K8s in premise, right? So my thought here is that no, I think nobody would like to go through such kind of pain, right? Cube control, do this, cube control. So most of the time it is UX or it is some ready-made Kubernetes out there. So what people do is they create such kind of a deployment file. I'll just quickly show that. They will create such kind of a deployment file. They will go and they will load the MVC core image or whatever .NET image somewhere on a registry. And this deployment file will be there. And they will say, cube control deploy. That's it. It will go to the UX and deploy it. So no, people don't do that. What I'm showing now, it is only for the basic concepts to understand, right? So if you see here, this is again, these documents are all out here. So you can see uh, this is for the UX, the steps are there, right? So we'll do that later on. But yes, mostly people will use AKS. They will upload somewhere in the registry, and then they will go ahead and use kube control and say, kube control, apply this deployment. Kube control creates so many pods, right? So that's how it works, right? Right. Okay, guys. Thank you very much. I understand that today's day was a failure, but also I hope so you got a lot of insight. There will be no training tomorrow. Please note, guys. That is why, because we are starting with K8s. I want everyone to come in. Like in the last class, it was 50 people. So many people are still not aware. Our emails have not gone. So I have to just Minikube. And then we will quickly jump to UX, because there is no point in doing such kind of R&D. We'll quickly jump to UX. We will upload an MVC core image out there. We'll try to see how it looks, right? We'll try to close one of the images, another image comes up, right? So those kind of demos. So these are the two demos which we are planning. So I think this will must be maximum three days, right? And that should end the class. Let me know, guys, if there is anything you want in this class more. It has been almost more than 3 months. We started this year with Docker. Let me know anything more you want on K8s, right?